Good.
I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2016 to order. With roll call, please.
Kraus,
Here.
McAlpine. Here. Kozler,
Here.
Cavelli. Here. Dudak.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I had several people sign in. Are you representing petitioner, or did you want to talk to the village board? I have, that looks like David Snodgrass? A petitioner, okay. Jason Bussell? Okay. Roger Franz? Stephen Jackson? Okay, well, I'll talk in a few minutes, okay. Thank you. Thank you. We'll go ahead and close open forum unless there's anybody else that had something to say. Thank you. Moving forward to the mayor's report, I have a few things. I just wanted to compliment Eric and his team putting together a great turnout at the Three Oaks Road improvement plan at the high school. It was very well attended. I happened to get there at a time when it was it was packed in there, and a lot of great questions people were asking. People seemed to be really engaged. I think a lot of people thought we were going to make this a 5-lane road the way it was, but it'll be some nice changes over there. So thank you for putting that together. I was really happy to be a part of that. Thanks. This past Friday was the annual chamber dinner, and the village received a certificate of excellence once again for participating in their process, and it's really nice to be acknowledged by that. It was a really great event. Trustee Kraus, Trustee McAlpine, myself, Village Clerk Bragg, and their significant others all attended as well. It was a fun night. It was good to be part of that process, so thank you to them. Also, the village has been recognized by Toys for Tots through the McHenry County. We got a certificate for that. There were 6,800 children in McHenry County that were served. There was over 21,000 toys provided in McHenry County, and thank you to Village Hall staff for participating in that. That's a great thing to do for the community. And finally, on Saturday morning, Chris Clark, the village administrator, and myself, we attended the annual Northwest Municipal Conference Legislative Program. It was very well attended. We had some great keynote speakers there talking about the Illinois Municipal League's agenda and the Northwest Municipal Conference's agenda. So it's a great thing to be a part of, great minds sticking together. There was a lot of people from various parties there, and some senior ranking elected officials from the state of Illinois. So it was very well received and great information. So it was
I might add one point to that note. It was a practice that we started last year. I wanted to advise the board about. Typically in the February-March timeframe, in this case April, through the Municipal League as well as the Northwest Municipal Conference and the McHenry County Council of Governments, we participate in legislative days where we're asked by our county to go down and assist in the overall platform for McHenry County and then the other bodies that we're members of. Last year, I thought it was a good move. We adopted or reviewed the agendas, the legislative agendas of both the McHenry County Council of Governments and then the Northwest to ask any questions, get on the same page about them. It's helpful, and I'd like to bring these to possibly your next board meeting for consideration. It helps those of us that attend the legislative days have your authority to have some participatory conversations with state legislators. Is there any concern with bringing that forward, answering your questions about some of those policy items, and then getting your feedback? Okay, that's what I'll do. Thank you.
It's really a good thing to do. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items number 1 and 3 through 6. Were there any of the other ones or 3 through 6 that people wanted pulled off? Okay, and then I will continue with the entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items number 1 and 3 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Dudak?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Thank you. And I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda number 2 as amended, which is the village board meeting minutes for January 19th, 2016.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Kraus?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Dudak?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Thank you.
If there's anyone from the public, I mean, telecom, because we can do this one first with the audience member. Is there anyone here for the?
Okay. Is there anybody here present for the telephone antenna?
Yeah.
As the representative of the petitioner? We just wanted to see if there was any public input on that. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-02-02, granting the conditional use for telecommunications antenna for the property located at 30 Northwest Highway.
Oh, wait a minute.
So moved.
Aren't we gonna discuss it?
Any second?
It's just
No.
to bring it in.
I don't have it.
We can discuss it.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Who did the first?
Second.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. Is request before you this evening is a request was reviewed by the zoning board in January for a conditional use for a telecommunications antenna. By code, any telecommunications antennas that are taller than 35 feet in height require conditional use approval. The proposed location for this tower is located on 30 Northwest Highway, which is just located east of the ComEd power lines south of US Route 14. The plans that are indicated here show the location of the tower. It will be located in the south west corner of the property, directly adjacent to the ComEd property, or the ComEd right-of-way line. As proposed is a 150-foot tall telecommunications tower with related ground equipment. Access will be provided to the tower via the existing drive that is provided off of Route 14 towards the back of the property. This is a detailed site plan, is the exact location or installation of the tower. Going to be located in the southwest corner of the site. Will be enclosed with a fencing area surrounding the ground equipment, and then an access gate which will be provided to the eastern side of this area that would provide access back to Route 14. An easement would be provided that would provide electrical lines, utilities to that location. This is information that the petitioner provided as far as the proposed antenna location and the modifications that the installation would have on coverage in the area. Specifically, the tower, the cursor, is located in this portion of the map, so you can see the difference between this image on the right versus the image on the left. The new area in green would be the additional coverage that would be gained through the installation at this location. So the petitioner during the zoning hearing mentioned or provided testimony that there's an existing shortage of service in the area as far as in-home service or in-vehicle service, that the addition of this antenna tower would provide additional services to residents that live within the village of Cary. When the difference between these two maps would be the areas that would increase additional services. This image is one that staff prepared based off information that we were able to obtain from ComEd as far as the height of the existing structures that are in the ComEd right-of-way. As you can see in this image, the proposed pole location is indicated on the right with the red line. That's not representative of the exact height of it, but it would show where the tower would be located at. In relation to the existing ComEd high-tension power line poles that are directly behind it. As you can see, there's some towers in the ComEd right-of-way which would be similar scope and scale. There's a 154-foot tower which is closer to the intersection of Main Street and 14, which is on the right-hand side of this image, and then a 144-foot tower which is closer to Janus Road and Janus Cutoff, the intersection there with the railroad crossing. 3 other towers in the area range between 120 to 130 feet in scope. On January 14th, the ZPA held a public hearing to review the requests from the petitioner. Based off the review of documentation and testimony that was provided at that hearing, ZPA recommended approval of a conditional use for a telecommunications tower at 30 Northwest Highway by a vote of 5-2. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the discussion that was had at that hearing. The petitioner is also here that can provide additional information on the request.
David, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One for the petitioner. Have you worked out a rental agreement or something with Mr. Fisher? Is that how that works?
Yes, sir, we have.
Before you, could you state your name and
Sure,
address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Darren Snodgrass. I have offices at 1829 Fortner Drive, Indianapolis, Indiana, representing PI Telecom Infrastructure T LLC. They're known as Parallel Infrastructure, and they're the tower developer for T-Mobile on this particular site.
Okay. Brian, we had a discussion last week regarding my belief, and I don't know if you can pull that map up, that there is an actual dedicated village street that runs on the side alongside the auto mart guys there, that runs directly in line with where that tower is going. Now, I looked on our platted survey at the lodge there, and I see it as a dedicated street. You told me that it looks like at some time that the village deeded that property over to the auto dealership. Can we find some kind of a deed? Otherwise, there should be a map showing that that is a street that was due, and when it was initially planned and the subdivision was laid out, that was going to be a through street to go back across the ComEd into that back subdivision.
Yeah, as far as the question, get the cursor to come up, there's a street which is in the residential area,
Yeah, there we go.
western edge of the ComEd right-of-way. Originally, that plan, or that street was planned to go through this area and then connect to US 14. From a parcel standpoint, there is individual ownership of all the land that's in there. There's not a dedicated right-of-way that exists that the village still has jurisdiction over. As you can see on this image here, the individual parcel lines, this is the edge of Manfred Auto's parcel, and then the subject parcel is a flag lot that goes in the back. The lodge property line is located almost where you can see the change in pavement color would be located there, but there's no longer an existing right-of-way in that location that we have control of.
So you show that at some time, or you can show me that at some time, the village gave that property where Manfred's has those cars parked.
Yeah, I don't have documentation that it was vacated at a specific time period, but based off the ownership of the land that's existing there, there's 3 separate parcels that the driveway is shared between 2 separate owners, and then the lodge is a third parcel that's privy to that, but there's no existing right-of-way that's remaining there that's under
For the village,
yeah.
okay. Thank you, Brian.
Brian, do you know what the negative comments were, why the 2 ZPA members voted no?
So the concerns that were expressed were looking at, one, the height of the structure, and then also allowing cellular antenna to be installed in the village if you were to allow it at one location. It might open the door for other locations throughout the village, was a couple of the concerns that were expressed to the ZPA.
Would this be the first one in the village?
It would not be the first one. There's another antenna that is installed, behind Thornton's on 14. There's an existing tower that's there between the commercial development and the Westlake subdivision.
And I might add, Trustee Kraus and Dudek and others may remember, we did have for some time with respect to that tower from the adjacent subdivision, a resident that was concerned about the emissions from that site, which I believe may have been in the county when it was put up, then brought into the village. We did a extensive study on that, proved that there was no issue. So I just wanted to put that on the record because that had come up and we dealt with that for probably 6-9 months with some citizens.
And since the current zoning code was adopted in the late 90s, we've had 2 requests for telecommunications towers. One was for a business that they were looking for a radio communications between their existing facilities. That was approved up to a height of 100 feet, but I don't believe it was ever installed beyond the 50-foot height, which they were also looking to test it at originally. And then a second tower was proposed on a ComEd power line to be installed on the top of a high-tension power line, which was denied by the village board.
So I'll tell you what my issues with this are. You know, number one, it's over 4 times the maximum height of what our code says. So I've got an issue with that. But probably the other 2 things that are, for me, even more important is that's our corridor when you come in from the east. We've been trying to develop Selke's property for a number of years with little to no interest in it. And I think anything that we do to put something there that will be noticeable and somewhat of an eyesore does not help develop that property. So I don't like the location of it. I don't like the height of it. I understand that we could probably use the coverage in the village, but we have an industrial park that's a stone's throw away from there that perhaps we could still accomplish the coverage for the community, but put something like this inside an industrial park as opposed to seeing it where we see it. And when I read that the petitioner is talking about putting a 6-foot wooden fence around it, I had to tell you, I have to cringe. Who's going to maintain that fence? It's going to fall apart relatively quickly, I would think. It just seemed like a Band-Aid suggestion to put a wooden fence around something like this. And so as it's presently proposed, I would not vote in favor of it.
Do we have any idea, or did you want to respond to him?
I might have the
Okay.
petitioner respond to those concerns, if that's fine.
Yes, I understand the concerns, and we try to take that into consideration when we come into an area ourselves. One of the first things we do is look for structures of height wherever we can. I first pointed out the ComEd structures to my client. I was informed that that had been looked at one other point in time between T-Mobile and ComEd, and that for whatever reason that was no longer on the table, so we started looking for property. I wanted to go to the industrial area, and in fact had canvassed the industrial area, sent letters to it, and I did not get any response of any interest. And what we need to do at that point in time is look at the properties that do have interest and try to mitigate as much as possible. Thus, we are using the monopole. The other thing that you mentioned was the fence. Parallel Infrastructure is the party that will be managing and maintaining the property. It is to their best interest and to their security of their clients and their tenants that fence be maintained at all times. Now, we can do a lot of different things, and the proposal of a wooden fence was one that I put forward just to, again, try to mitigate. There are other ways. There are, vinyl clad chain link with slats. There are other things that can be done on a base situation. So we're open to that situation as well. And we understand the concern for the height. And one of the reasons what we proposed the height that we did was not only to provide the optimal coverage for T-Mobile, but also to provide location for additional carriers, so to mitigate and to minimize the number of potential needed sites within the village itself as well. The concern of, opening it up to where there are others, you have a good ordinance. The ordinance stipulates where we can, where we cannot go, and we have to work within it. And the reason we're asking for the conditional use, obviously, is because of the height. We do need a lot more than 35 feet to be able to provide adequate coverage. But they would also, I would imagine, Brian, you might have to correct me on this one, but I believe as I read it, any co-location would have to come before the planning commission as well to show what their plans would be and what their proposals would be. So again, the village has the opportunity to look at each one of these as they come in. So, based on that situation, when we looked at the various different properties, and this is about the second property that I did work with to try to get something done. And I felt that this one with the putting the site tucked away back behind the existing commercial buildings and commercial and quasi formerly manufacturing industries, it would be a good location. So
How did you guys come across this site?
how I come across the property itself, what happens is we're given a set of target coordinates, and they're lat and longs. Okay, and then we're told within that area, that parameters, and it can either be a radius of a half mile, quarter mile, or it might be, in this case, a trapezoid, okay, that they want to look in, that they need to try to put something in. And so what we do then is we go and we first off take a look at FAA database, the FCC database. We have a mapping program that has our own database of existing sites. We scrub it against that. And then from there, we take a look at the zoning ordinances. And the zoning ordinances tell us where we can and where we cannot go. So to have a potential and possibility of going through there are a limited number of properties in that area that are eligible to be even brought before this body. And this was the one that had the interest, was willing to go into a lease, and also had the space to provide enough ground space to have additional carriers going eventually. There was a couple others that we had been talking to, and we're reviewing, but the constraints of the property were making it very difficult. Plus, would have possibly put us even more so out in front of everything, and we had a feeling that would not be well received.
Have you talked to any other carriers about the prospects for putting those antennas on that tower?
I'm going to just have to give you an educated guess. Yes. I was on the phone just this past Monday with the client, and the what they call is their account executive is on those calls, and they are constantly trying to find out where we're at within development so they can present those to other carriers as well. And they take that list, and especially once we receive any type of a permitting approval, be it zoning permitting, be it building permit, they then go back out and scrub even harder and tell clients, potential clients, that the terror is going to be there.
How many tenants will that monopole be able to hold?
We're currently designing it for, I believe, a 4-carrier pole. And at 100, if it goes at 150 feet, which you could look at a 10-foot separation between antennas, center line to center line. So you'd be looking at 150, 140, 130, 120, and we even can design it to go to 110 and have it be a 5-carrier pole if you want. But that's what the minimum design that I have ordered on most of the sites that I've worked with, and I do some of the construction management for them as well, has been 4-carrier poles.
What's the length of the lease that you have with the property owner?
The length of the lease is a 5-year initial term with 5 5-year renewals. So
Whose
it's a
option?
30-year total,
Whose option are those renewals?
the carriers.
So theoretically, if you decide you want to keep it there, you could keep it there for 30 years?
Correct.
My opinion is that property on Jandis is transitional property. 30 years from now, that's not going to look like it looks today. At least I hope it doesn't. And that's going to be a detriment to the redevelopment of that road, in my opinion, because whoever's going to buy it is going to be stuck with a 30-year lease and may not want that in their backyard.
And a 30-year revenue stream too. So-
Well, I understand. And that's why I was so surprised that you didn't have any interest in the industrial park, because these things are gold mines for people who want to stick them in the corner of their property and have a nice, quiet tenant.
Trust
I'm not
me,
adverse to it.
I was asked a lot too.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
adverse
sure.
to this. Man, let me be very clear. It's
Yeah.
the location that I think is terrible.
Understood.
Any other thoughts?
Brian, we've had some concerns in the past about losing tenants on our water towers. How would this impact in terms of revenue for the village?
Looking at the location, the closest water towers that we have, there's one on High Road, which is just outside the downtown area, is the closest one to this proximity. And then another one is located on Three Oaks Road to the north of the site. I don't know the distances between those two, but it would be somewhat a midpoint between those two locations. So there potentially could be an impact as far as existing carriers that we might have if that, if they're on those two towers, and, it might be a midpoint between the two, whether they would provide additional services to them or not, I'm not sure. But there could potentially be an impact.
If I may, coming from a 22-year professional on locating these things, the reason we were having to look at where we're looking and go where we're going in a lot of cases is because of what you saw on the coverage map. It's not just only you can't get a cell phone call going on through there. It's also the sheer volume, the data usage, the LTE usage. And so the fact that these sites are still being developed, even on a tower basis, on a raw land basis, we're not going anywhere. I was told I was going to have a good 5-year career 22 years ago. And I think I got 3 pieces of equipment with me tonight that use wireless. So, yeah, I don't. In terms of affecting, they're going to need to be in both places.
How far is this pole going to be in conjunction with the ComEd right away? Is it going to be right on top of that right away? Is that what you're proposing? Is it right where this?
The lease area itself will probably be abutting the property lines itself. The tower itself is probably going to be, I'd have to take a look at the plans. Let me go ahead and back to that. Apologize. Don't know off the top of my head. I believe that we're going to be
30 feet.
35, yeah, 30 feet from the fence itself. So, and again, these towers are designed to, if they do fail, they're designed to fail within themselves.
I have concerns similar to Trustee Tudix in the sense that as we're looking to develop this property, which we are hopefully going to be moving positively in that direction, I just don't want to see something that would potentially steer someone away from that. And I'm shocked too that someone in the industrial's not jumping on this. But on the flip side, I didn't see anyone come here adverse to it either. I've not seen, I see everyone that's abutting up to it here. I'm looking at some of these people and I know some of these people and I don't see anyone here stating that they're in opposition to it. So.
I've heard from people, not the one out on East Main that's out there. I've heard people that live on Alicia. They've made comments to me that they don't like it. They sit in their backyard. They have to look up there and see it. So, I mean, aesthetically, there is that concern.
David, any other questions?
No.
Kim?
I think everything's been asked and said.
Okay, nothing else? Okay, roll call, please.
McAlpine,
No.
Chapman,
No.
Kraus,
No.
Dudak,
No.
Cavelli? No. Cosler?
No.
You could talk to Brian about next steps, future steps, other locations within the village, but I think the board made it pretty clear as where they'd like to see it, somewhere in an industrial park.
Okay, we'd like to be able to find a landowner that wants to work with us too.
All right, thank you very much.
Wish I could have it at my house.
Well, my taxes.
Right?
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance O16-02-03, granting a conditional use for a drive-through restaurant and variations to reduce the required parking setbacks and reduce the required number of parking spaces from 12 spaces to 4 spaces for the property located at 60 Northwest Highway.
So moved.
Second.
Hey, Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned, the request for you this evening is for a conditional use for a drive-through use. It's for a drive-through only Burger King restaurant. There's 2 parking variations that are required for the proposal. which is located in the corner of Northwest Highway and Jandis Cutoff. As proposed, as mentioned, it would be a drive-through only restaurant. No interior seating is proposed as part of this operation. As the petitioner has mentioned, this is, or provide information, this will be a prototype Burger King drive-through only restaurant, meaning that it's the first in the country as far as a design standpoint for the firm. There are other drive-through only establishments in the country from other operators, but this would be Burger King's first within the U.S. As proposed, there are 2 vehicular access points to the site. A existing curb cut is located on U.S. Route 14. That entrance will be modified to be a right-in only. So vehicles that are traveling from downtown Cary towards Fox River Grove would be able to turn in on the site as they're traveling eastbound. Vehicles that are traveling westbound from Fox River Grove towards Cary would not be able to turn in that location. They would be able to turn in onto Jandis Cutoff at the signal at that intersection, and then turn into the site via full access point that will be provided on Jandis Cutoff Road. Vehicles that would be exiting the site, the only way to exit the property would be via the curb cut to Jandis Cutoff as well. There will not be no exiting to Route 14. As the layout here, as you can see, and I'll use the cursor to provide additional information. It is a one-way circulation around the site. So if a vehicle were to come in off of 14, they would transverse the site in this manner around the building, and they would enter the drive-through lanes in front of the building. So they would almost complete a full circle on the property before they would enter the drive-through lanes. The two menu boards are provided so that additional orders can be provided to decrease the amount of vehicles that are waiting in the drive-through. And then upon ordering, vehicles would then drive through the stacking area, which is on this exhibit. You can see where vehicles would be stacking in the drive-through lane, pick up their items, and then exit back through the one-way circulation in this manner back to Jandis Cutoff. There's parking for 4 vehicles stored on the property, and the relief being sought is for reduced 2 parking setbacks along the frontages along the roadways. Zoning approvals for this proposed use, the drive-through requires conditional use approval, so the zoning would need to be provided for that use. As proposed, the drive-through will provide stacking for 12 vehicles, which is double what our code minimum requirement is of 6. There are 2 variations that are requested to reduce the required 15-foot parking setback along each roadway frontage, reducing the setback along Jandis Cutoff from 15 feet down to 4 feet, and then along US Route 14 from 15 feet down to 2 feet. As you can see on this slide, the Jandis Cutoff setback, there is still a very significant right-of-way area that would exist between the property line and the curb line, where the property line in this exhibit is shown in this location, where the 155-foot dimension is provided, and then the curb line is out at this location. That varies from the intersection towards the entrance of between 20 feet to 50 feet as far as green space will be between the drive-through lane and or the parking lane and the roadway. Along 14 is narrower right-of-way with the 2-foot setback. There's a narrower right-of-way in that portion, so you will not have as significant of a green area. But one of the conditions of approval were to provide landscaping in both of those right-of-ways to provide screening of the drive-through uses. Finally, the number of parking spaces variation is being requested. For the proposed use, by code, the building is approximately 1,000 square feet in size, which would require 12 vehicles. Our code is designed to look at drive-through uses based off the standard design that would have seating and drive-through components to them. So this proposal is a little, our code was not intended to speak towards it, but would provide 4 parking spaces on site. Petitioner during the zoning hearing indicated that their peak time periods, they would have a maximum of about 7 employees at the establishment that would be working here. So obviously, the 4 parking spaces would not be adequate to accommodate the peak time. However, condition of approval from the ZPA was to obtain a shared parking agreement with an adjacent property for that surplus parking time period. The petitioner has been able to obtain that with the property located within our code. It requires a distance of 600 feet for any shared parking. So they've obtained an agreement, which I believe is in your packets, with the property further to the west on Northwest Highway. This slide shows the proposed floor plans, a very compact building. It's about 50 feet in length by about 20 feet in width. Again, it's just to operate the kitchen for a standard fast food restaurant. So no seating areas or anything in there would reduce the size of the footprint of the building. Proposed building elevations, you can see here, color elevation provides a mix of materials on the building, of durable construction materials, has brick and components along the base of the structure, prefabricated metal panels for the exterior side, and then metal awnings and canopies to provide additional interest as far as shadow lines and visual relief, vertical relief to the buildings. There are also elements of the facade that have variable roof heights, so that it's not a linear structure, kind of breaks up the massing of the structure, which for the relative size of the structure, there is a lot of architectural detail that's provided in the images here. Briefly looking at utility plans, the existing utilities are in the area that the proposed development would tie into, that utilities that exist in the Janus Cutoff right-of-way portion. On January 14th, the ZPA held a public hearing to review the request from the petitioner, and based off review of documentation and testimony that was provided during that hearing, ZPA recommended approval of three motions by a vote of 6-1, including conditional use for a drive-through restaurant and variations to reduce the required parking setbacks and number of parking spaces from 12 to 4. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the request, and the petitioner is also here that can provide additional information on the proposal.
Thank you, Brian. Open it up for some discussion.
I'm familiar with the rallies and the Checkers design, very successful throughout their zones. Can you go back to the slide where we're actually going to have the parking? I've got a question about ADA and how we're going to meet that with only 4 spots. Where's the handicap parking going to be?
That's right.
There's a handicap parking is proposed in the corner of the site at this location. So that parking space would need to be designed per ADA standards.
And then where's the other 3 going to be then?
Right behind.
There are 3 parallel spaces as you drive in. There's 3 spaces are here. So by code, with the number of spaces that they're providing, they would need to provide a minimum of 1 handicap space.
Okay.
Would there be any possibility of, with the right-of-way, allowing some parking on there, additional spaces? And then if ever it was needed, they would lose it.
On the Janus Cutoff
Yeah.
right away? It was not something we explored, just to have all the parking provided on site. The shared parking agreement that they were able to attain provided additional parking off the premises, which they weren't able to accommodate in the property. If we provide parking within the right of way, it would be a lease or whatever. We would have to work out with them from that standpoint.
I have a question regarding signing and the entrances. It just seems a little tricky to get in and out of here. I mean, you have to be a little bit experienced, I think, to know what you're doing. So are we going to have, like, I wouldn't know if I'm coming from Fox River Grove, I can only enter that from Janus Cutoff. We're going to have signage there, and then, you can enter there from the other way, but then you have to only leave on Janus Cutoff. Is there going to be, other than the building itself, signage to tell people it exists there?
Yeah, I think at this point it's premature as far as going through the zoning process to provide, what the signage is or was intended to be, but through the permit process, we would finalize that, that there would be some regulatory signage to help guide vehicles through the site. With this layout, there likely would be a no left turn sign for westbound traffic on 14, so somebody coming from Foxborough Grove would know not to turn there, similar to other right in, right out intersections that we have throughout the community now. And then with the way that the site has been designed, there's a stop bar would be provided here to control vehicles going into that drive aisle location. So there would be signage underneath that that would say right only or, to that effect, but we can work with the petitioner to finalize those plans through the permit process to ensure that adequate signage is provided.
Okay.
Brian, I have a question about the shared parking agreement. I'm just a little confused. Is that just for employee parking or is it overflow for, because it says both? Is that for customers as well or not?
Well, the site would not have customers that would
Right.
access the building. The way the agreement may have been written is for both conditions, but realistically, it would be for employee overflow parking.
But if somebody goes to the drive-through and then wants to park over there to eat, that's allowed. That's in the agreement. Is that provided for, I guess?
Yeah.
Question.
As far as the operation, I mean, if somebody were to, frequent this facility or access this facility, they wouldn't be able to park on site.
I mean, they're not going to have signs over there that
there wouldn't
say
be
employee parking only. I mean, how transparent is it that?
It wouldn't
people are
be
gonna-
signed to the standpoint that there's parking on, this property
Okay.
that you can go to. It's something petitioner might be able to respond to as well, but from a.
Pretty much the only way they would know if they were an employee.
Correct, yeah. It's, from my experience with shared parking agreements, there generally is not signage between properties that you would have to guide vehicles to another site. There might be a sign on the property, if they're right next to each other, that would say, employee parking only for, these two uses or something like that. But it would be a sign that would direct people, to go on the 14 and then turn on the adjacent property to go in and park there to consume.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get in a situation where a bunch of people were parking that were there and that agitated that owner and then they throw away the agreement and we're in trouble. I also had a little bit of a concern with the traffic flow and thought maybe there could be another exit to right turn onto 14 after you get your food there from the line. Is there any way we could do something like that?
We did consider that for the different site plans that we looked at for the project. When you introduce a full access or a right in, right out to 14, it would cause other access on-site circulation issues. Whereas if you have a vehicle, just for example, that were coming here and this were a right, if it were a right out from that standpoint, due to the traffic counts on 14, waiting for a gap to pull out in that location would cause additional stacking on the property, which would impact the operations overall. I think the current plan, which you have here, shows, the maximum number of vehicles that can be accommodated in the stacking lane for the drive-through. Once you go beyond that, that's kind of where the choke point of this property would be, is if you have 13 vehicles that happen to be in the drive-through at the same time, that would block the drive aisle that's between the entrance to the drive-through and 14, so on that eastern or the right-hand side of the screen. If that happens, there's still adequate stacking to accommodate another 10-plus vehicles on the property so that there's no backing up onto 14 or Janus cutoff for vehicles that want to access it.
I don't think the parking lot next door would even be an issue because you're coming in from 14, going out onto Janus, then you're going to have to go back onto 14 and cross over to get back up into the parking lot. And I think people would just see it as just another driveway that has parking up there that had nothing to really do with this restaurant. It's almost like Carrie's first roundabout.
Starting off slow.
I might ask a quick question. Was there testimony at the zoning board level about the reason that it's a modular building? Is the thought that if it's successful, is there the thought to long-term acquire other property, or what was the logic in the modular aspect?
Can I have the petitioner respond to
Yeah.
that? I mean, they're present, they can speak more to the modular design and then the prototype design for the building as well.
Did you want to come up, please?
Hi, I'm Sandy McDonald with Tom's King. I'm the franchisee. And Burger King approached us to do this prototype test for them on modular building on smaller sites. And we don't want to take up a lot of land when we're doing new development. And this site in Cary was perfect size to test this. And Starbucks and a lot of other brands are doing these modular building. It's more cost effective to franchisees. It's greener. And actually, we have the modular people with us tonight if you'd like them to speak to it.
Sure, why not? You can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, Stephen Jackson.
Did you want to talk about the design, the function, ability, the whole that would be something new to the village. We haven't had a modular building here that I'm aware of, so this is something that would be.
Modular construction's come a long way. It's not your typical mom's mobile home anymore. And if I would invite you to go to any modular company's website and take a look. Ours included at some of the projects that we've done currently as well as in the past. They're all built to conventional codes, commercial construction codes. The only difference is we build ours in a factory. So simultaneously, when you do the work on site, we're building the building off site. When the on-site portion is completed, we bring the building. Therefore, economically speaking for the franchisee, you're in business a whole lot quicker. We're not impacted as much by the weather with the exception for the site work. Engineering and design is all done by conventional professional engineers. They're all state approved. What can I tell you?
How much is it? Just the walls built somewhere else, and you just build them all? How is it? Does it come in a big
It's a
semi and you
box.
plop it down?
It's for lack of a better word, it is a box. It's a very strange box, but it is a box. Modular construction, like I said, has come a long way. Downtown San Antonio, Texas, right on the Riverwalk, there's a hotel that was built back in the 1960s. It was one of the original modular hotels that I believe memory serves 9 stories in height. Over in Europe, they're building 11, 12 stories in height. Here, I've personally done 3 stories. This here is a single modular building with the facade that you saw. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what it's going to look like. The only difference is ours comes in with wheels and axles. At the end of the day, they're gone.
So the question for you folks is, so then this is not a starter home, this is it? I mean, I'm just curious, is that your vision, or is it to stay open-minded to future expansion?
It's one of the options we're finding in our other markets that parcels of land are either really, really expensive for the right size or they're small parcels. So this is the ideal solution for a small parcel.
Okay.
And I actually went down to Miami and looked at a Starbucks that was modular, and I had no idea that it wasn't brick and mortar built on site.
So do you actually buy the property or just rent?
That was my question too.
N3 is our developer, and we rent.
So you
It's a
basically
built to
have a
suit.
commercial mobile home. You're going to pay rent to somebody for the pad.
Yes, we are doing a commercial modular build to suit.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name's Roger Franz. I'm with N3 Real Estate, 620 East South Lake Boulevard, South Lake, Texas. We're the developer, and one of the options that modular construction gives us is the ability to get our tenant quicker to the market. It's not intended to be packed up and taken away at any moment. This is a permanent fixture. The building elements, the parapet walls, the different stuff, they come out in pieces and they will physically bolt it together, just like you bolt together or erect anything. We have 2 other sites in the area, one in Huntley and one in Carpentersville, that we're currently working with Wall Masters Modular Construction to have those built off-site and brought on, and nobody in this room would be able to tell that they were modular construction.
I don't have any concerns with the modular. In fact, it's cutting edge. Your tolerances are much better and the build quality is better. So I think it's a good product. It's not anything comparable to a mobile home, and I don't think you can make that comparison. So.
Brian, any other questions?
Does our existing code accommodate this kind of situation?
Yeah, it would still be regulated under our building codes. So we have the International Building Code 2003 edition. So they would need to conform to those building code requirements as far as egress, standards of construction would still comply to this, or would still apply to this installation.
I guess I'm thinking more from the perspective of, this is not a permanent structure. There's no basement, right?
It's built on a
It can
pad.
be, it can be taken away.
Slab on grade.
Yeah.
With all due respect, there's houses that were built permanently that were moved down the road these days.
Sure, no, I understand. I've seen them.
The intent is for it to be permanent, and that's how it is being built.
You also, to me, it seems like you're squeezing an awful lot on a relatively small parcel. Dave, with all due respect, I think Checkers is out of business, at least in Illinois it is. So that concept didn't work too well. In order to really address how you get in and out of this, you're going to have signs here, which to me are going to look very busy on a relatively small site. Again, same argument I will have personally. I may be alone on this, but this is a site that you see when you pull into Cary. It just doesn't look like it's going to fit, period. And it's going to be, I think this should be built on a larger site where we don't have to have the issues of the in and out egress, the potential signage to alert potential clients where they can and cannot turn. It just doesn't seem like it's the right location. I applaud the concept. I don't think the location's correct.
In terms of the property, and you said you don't own the property, like how long of a lease do you have then signed with the property owner?
N3's under contract to purchase the property. We'll hold it long-term.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't have a problem. One of the concerns I had with the comprehensive plan, and this would be a perfect example, was we didn't really look at the small parcels that we have in town and say, okay, 10, 15 years from now, we'd like to see this parcel and the one behind it and the one next to it somehow, I don't know how we would go about doing it, but be one parcel so that the corner could be developed as one big piece. I actually like the idea that it is modular and that it somewhere down the line, there is that possibility that if somebody comes along, a developer, and says, we'd like to put in a big Thornton's gas station here on the corner or something else, it's not that much of a issue in terms of moving along in that line in terms of development, I guess. Am I correct in thinking that? Okay. I mean, it's such a small piece. I didn't even think, when I look at this, I'm thinking, oh, okay, they actually fit more on here than I thought could even fit on there. I always looked at that parcel and drove by there and I'm like, oh, that's a postage stamp. What can we do with something like that? This is, I think, is something that we can put there. And then if something else comes along, that looks at the bigger picture, then we move forward in that direction and, offer, or whoever's developing it comes back and talks to you guys and, hey, what's going on, this and that. So I think it's something to look forward to.
It meets many of the goals that this board and the past board have expressed regarding business development. The other aspect I think that's important to note from also part of the comprehensive plan, obviously we've had some vacant property adjacent to it that we've known for some time is a great site for future retail development, strip center development, and this project could be an example of the success of that corridor in terms of a smaller sized business of being highly successful. And what a great example for across the street to demonstrate to the development community how this kind of traffic could work and what other opportunities there are on the Selkie property adjacent to it. I think it's going to be, if you decide to approve it, I think it will be, though a unique use, I think it'll be one that sets an example.
I kind of want to piggyback on that. Chris just kind of stole some of what I was going to say, my thunder, but that's okay. I personally am excited about it. I think that I love the idea of Cary being out in the forefront and taking a piece of property and trying to optimize with what we have to work with. And if it even has the remote potential of getting the Selkie property, some interest of people looking at that, I think that, I think that it's a great idea. As for getting people in and out and thinking it might look busy, it's true, but you could look at somewhere like Chick-fil-A where they had to do that in Crystal Lake, and you only can go in one way and not out the other way. And you know what? Give it a month or so, and people will be used to it. I mean, it's people are smart. They can figure it out. It's a little bit different, but they can adjust. And I think people will be very excited to have Burger King.
Any
And I
other
know
questions
Nancy
from
wants
the
a crown.
David, do you have questions?
Yeah, it's been 6 years that we've had the bank down there at the corner of 14 and Main, and I still see people pulling out and going across 14 and turning left. So they may not be all that smart. So I'm very interested in what type of access restriction you're going to have for those folks when they pull, because they're going to look and they're going to see Route 14 right there, and they're going to see Jandis way over there. And so I'm just concerned about that portion of it, the public safety issue, crossing 14 and trying to turn left or even trying to turn right with cars coming in. So we'll see, and hopefully on the site plan itself, there'll be something that shows some type of a buffer or something that really encourages people to turn. And the other one is after you get up and going, because thanks for picking Carrie. Don't forget, think about us when you're thinking about your waste stream for your food waste and for your oils and fats and greases. And
You weren't here earlier, or were you here?
we'll be talking to you in the future. All right, thank you.
Any other, Kim?
I think it's
Just 1 second.
a great concept. I am concerned about the ins and outs, and I do agree with Trustee Dudek. I don't want a bunch of busy signs there, especially right at that corner. Again, I really like the concept. I think it's innovative, but when it comes time to discuss signs, that's going to be an issue for me. So.
Burger King does have some low-profile signs and some big-profile signs and all kinds of directional signs in the design plan. So whatever you guys want them to read, we can have it read that, place them wherever they need to be placed.
Cool. I have a question as it relates to the ingress and egress that might make it more palatable. Do you really need the cut on Northwest Highway?
Thank you, Rick.
Can't you just have, I'm looking at your design, and it looks like the cars can drive around the building and go in and out of Jandis instead of having, because, I mean, we had this discussion regarding Culver's on the Northwest Highway site and traffic backing up as it was going into turn. I'm sure you all remember that. The potential exists for the same thing to happen here. So, one of the things that Kim just mentioned, the signage, if you have the cut on Northwest Highway, you're going to have some sort of things that are going to indicate to people that they can and can't go certain ways. I don't care how small or how pretty they are, they're going to be signs. So, can you do this site without having the Northwest Highway cut and just enter in and out of Jandis?
Well, it would definitely affect our eastbound, capturing eastbound traffic, and we did do some studies on it. It would affect our sales.
You've got a model in South Elgin at Sundown and Route 31 that has that. They don't have a cut in on 31, and you turn on Sundown and go in and you exit out Sundown. So, I mean, there is a model. It's not a modular place, but just because of those type of concerns, South Elgin has it.
Dave, did you have a comment?
Yeah, we have a modular building in Cary already. The bank next to Cary Restaurant, that was a modular building.
Chase, yes, that's right.
I did the post for it and it's sitting on pads, I'm sitting on the foundation. And you can't tell that. It looks like a brick building, and they brought that in, big crane and 2 buildings, and that this has been in town before, so it's a really neat idea. And I like the idea of it there because the original building there was a Flying High Drive-In. So we're kind of going back to old school.
Oh, man.
Remember Flying High Drive-In? So
And it was a bank and then a
it
car
was Flying High
dealer.
Drive-In first,
Yeah.
then it was the bank, and then it was the car lot, so
Wow.
it had the ingress and outgress before
It
when
did,
was,
yes.
You know, but it was,
The stories it
we're
could tell.
going back in time.
Yeah, there was only 6 cars on that single lane,
Right.
14, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Morimoto, did you have a follow-up comment at all regarding this concept of closing a driveway and what IDOT issues there might be, et cetera?
Yes, we actually did discuss the concept with the petitioner through the review process, and they did work with us very well to try and accommodate most of our concerns and all of our concerns regarding just the main one, the potential to back up traffic onto Route 14. So it is an unusual circulation and an unusual layout, but in that end, it does address those concerns. With regards to Route 14, obviously any access changes do require an IDOT permit, and that's obviously going to be in play here. With regards to what IDOT typically would approve, anytime you're eliminating access or reducing access and eliminating those dangerous maneuvers, which in this case would be the more dangerous maneuvers, the left out in particular, and probably the left in movements, the site plan did include and does address. So from a traffic engineering perspective, in my experience with these types of developments, they have mitigated most of our concerns and have put forth a quality layout.
But as it relates to IDOT, I'm not sure you answered the specific question. As it relates to IDOT approving the closing of an existing curb cut, given the safety factors, would IDOT be more prone to approve that or deny that? Eric, in your opinion?
In my opinion, they would be prone to consider a proposal like this with a right-in only restriction. I have seen that on other properties, in my experience in Crystal Lake on Route 14, whereas that of all the maneuvers, the limited maneuvers that they prefer, the right-in only, as opposed to the full access or three-quarter access, are things they have experienced and approved in the past.
Yeah, but that I don't really have again, that's not the question. The question is, what do you think IDOT would say as it relates to closing the Northwest Highway curb cut entirely? So there's no right at all, and you have to come in off of Jandis. That's what I'm curious about.
IDOT's perspective, they wouldn't object to a full closure, but to my experience, they also wouldn't object to a very limited closure as well.
Yeah, and I get
So
that.
they would
might
approve
not-
either way.
They might not even comment because there might be no building project at all. I mean, if you close the access on Northwest Highway, be my guess.
That is correct. That's compared to the status quo, the existing full access driveway that exists and that a development could utilize if they didn't change the configuration of that access point, they would not be required to get an IDOT permit. So doing a development, the compromise of a right-in only still brings IDOT ahead from an access and safety standpoint to the status quo.
For whatever it's worth, for the petitioners, I would be much more in favor of this if there was not a curb cut on Northwest Highway. I think it just begs too many left turns out, which you see into some of our other developments in town. And I'm worried about the stacking. So that was one, and of course it eliminates the signage of the confusion of where you can and can't turn. So that's my opinion.
All right, is there any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Dudek?
As presently configured, no.
Thank you. Welcome to the Village of Cary. Work with Brian, he'll get you going. Thank you very much.
And I think it was said possibly on the record or in the staff report, it sounded like a June, July, opening. Very
Oh,
good.
even.
May to June, all right.
Should have said that before you got the vote.
May or
Well-
June, wow.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Get dinner on the way home.
No.
I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-02-04, a natural gas franchise agreement with Nicor Gas Company.
So moved.
Second.
Hey, Jake?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this was an agreement that was not negotiated or completed within a couple months, like the Burger King. The village had joined a consortium in 2009 to assist with the negotiations with Nicor Gas Company. Our existing agreement was up in 2011. And the consortium recently and finally had approved the agreement, completed negotiations with Nicor Gas, and is recommending all the consortium members to approve the attached agreement. There are specific provisions in here for the Village of Cary that are benefits to us. The first one that I wanted to highlight relates to the renewal payment. Nicor Gas, if the agreement is approved, will provide a one-time payment in the amount of $23,000 to the Village of Cary. We are, as a member of the consortium, we've been required to pay attorney fees of $5,700 approximately. The second item here that's to the village's benefit is the annual payment. The Village of Cary has the option either to select a annual payment or receive free therms of gas. In doing the math, it calcs out that the annual payment is in the best interest of the Village of Cary. The village has received an annual payment previously from Nicor. Our last annual payment that we received in 2015 was in the amount of $26,600. Through the agreement, there is a modified annual payment that would be an amount of approximately $31,000. Additionally, our village staff would receive some benefits here with, with the agreement. There are data sharing and informational meetings that would be included in the agreement that would provide for information sharing between Nicor and village staff. And so right now, we are in support of the agreement. We're operating outside of an agreement. The overall agreement has been negotiated by Holland & Knight, the attorney for the consortium. Our attorney, Adam Simon, has reviewed the agreement too, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the Nicor gas agreement.
Any questions for staff or village attorney?
Just one quick briefing. I did attend, 4 years I've been here, I attended 3 or 4 of the sessions for this. It was an extended process. I want to emphasize and thank Senator Pam Altoff from McHenry County, who interceded on behalf of all of the 38 some odd communities to help bring Nicor back to the table. It was an extended process, and she certainly helped in moving it along. So I wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve Resolution R16-02-02, authorizing execution of an agreement for professional auditing services with Selden Fox of Oak Brook, Illinois, for a fiscal year ended April 30th, 2016, with an option to extend for fiscal year 2017 and fiscal year 2018, and additional option to renew for fiscal year 19 and 20.
So moved. Second.
Hi, Mary.
Thank you, Mayor. Auditing services. The village has been served by McGladrey LLP for its annual auditing services for the past 3 years. With that said, it's important to review these services every 3 to 5 years, and it's a good business practice to ensure that the high level of review and transparency continues with the village's finances. And secondly, to review the fee structures for these services by implementing a request for proposal, or RFP. In December, the Village of Cary participated in a joint RFP process for auditing services with the City of Lake Forest and the Village of Vernon Hills. By participating in this joint RFP, it allows for a wider diversity of auditing firms with competitive bidding. As a result of this participation, the village received 8 proposals, which was a very good response. Staff evaluated the 8 bidding firms based on several criteria, including the experience, depth, and quality of staff assigned to the Village of Cary engagement, their knowledge of governmental accounting standards, and of course, cost. Fees range from $22,600 to $32,500, including single audit, which is a specialized audit when the village receives federal funding. Fees range from $19,750 to $30,000, excluding the single audit. For fiscal year 17, it is not anticipated that a single audit is going to be required. With that said, based on these criteria, staff recommends approval of Sullivan Fox to provide professional auditing services, as the mayor mentioned, for fiscal year 16 with a two-year option to renew for fiscal year 17 and 18, and then again, an option to renew for fiscal year 19 and 20. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Again, this is another great opportunity with the municipal partnering we've done. I mean, we've really saved the taxpayers some money with this. What were we paying McGladrey?
This was about a $10,000
Savings.
reduction from the McGladrey process that we just completed.
Great job.
Yes.
Any other questions regarding this? Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Cabelli?
Yes.
Hosler?
Yes.
I'd like to quickly thank Mary Ventrell, our finance manager. She took the lion's share of the work on this and worked quickly with two finance directors from these two other municipalities, and also I think learned a lot from that collaboration, which was great. Obviously, the cost savings is helpful, but you know, it's interesting when you put the word out that we're willing to work with other communities, things fall in our lap too. So it's been great. Good job taking the bull by the horns on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator support? Anything
Thank
else?
you, Mayor. Just two items to note for the record and the public. We touched on the Meyer material discussion at the committee of the whole meeting. Just wanted to indicate for the public that there will be a public hearing and zoning board, zoning planning and appeals board meeting on February 11th at the Crystal Lake Holiday Inn. We hold it there to make sure there's plenty of capacity. As the board's aware, we've had a number of zoning board meetings needing higher occupancy level. We typically will go to the Cary Junior High, but it was not available, nor the Park District, and that's why we're heading to the Holiday Inn. Those fees are picked up by the project. Secondly, we have on February 18th, there was some discussion about the Pearl Development Project coming back to the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals. We don't have final word on this yet. We know that we have two zoning board members that can't attend. And as is typical, the petitioner will decide whether or not that makes sense for proceeding. It sounds like he's going to ask for a continuance. I have not formally heard that back yet, but I just want to put that on the record because we continue to try to do a great job communicating to the public when these hearings occur. So I'll keep the board informed. When we get that information, it'll go out through the Cary News Weekly. We'll put a posting on our website when that's finalized. So that's my updates, Mayor. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. I'm assuming there's no department head reports since we heard from you already tonight. Thank you. Any future agenda items in discussion by the village board? Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss closed session minutes review and personnel relating appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Well, you're out.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
that's what they would tell you, which is a little baloney.
They say a good raise process. If you get anything, you can get up to a maximum.
Yeah.
I will entertain a motion to return from executive session.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, welcome back. We have one item for action on executive session. I will entertain a motion to approve executive session meeting minutes for the village board for Tuesday, November 3rd, Tuesday, November 17th, 2015. November 3rd was 2015 as well. For Tuesday, December 1st, 2015, and Tuesday, January 5th, 2016, not for release.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Adjourn.
Anybody in favor of that?
I
Take a vote, Mike.
All in favor, I said, didn't I? They all kind of said
Aye.